look at about half of my board commitments and say, which one did I miss last month? I'll go to these this month. And I've just had to get used to that, right? And so that's the problem.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know how much you guys coordinate.
Yeah. Yeah, and even cares a lot about this.
So I don't know.
We can
You guys wanna,
tag
like,
team
tag
it.
team it, so that there's some main boys there as well, semi-regularly.
And when do you when do you think they'll tend to meet?
So we meet the following.
Ezra. Please meet Ezra. Ezra helps manage my calendar. He's my policy advisor here. So.
Okay, so it's generally the fourth Monday. And we meet at 3 in the same meeting. I have people coming all over for that first meeting and several of them stay classes. We started meeting in March.
And where do you meet?
We meet over in the accounting department up in the administrative offices.
Yeah. Let's do it. Ezra will coordinate. Yeah, and you can coordinate with his office too. But in terms of my involvement, I'm happy to do whatever. And Ezra can. Yeah.
I don't know if there are
There has been some. There are other areas. You know, the chamber has
I don't.
some involvement with that.
I was
But,
gonna see if Bill did or not.
like what's his name? The former dean of BYU's business school.
'Cause he was meeting with him as well. And so,
I'm blanking on his net.
Yeah.
okay.
You tell me. Right. What?
And then how was 2 months to allow for so but it's
What? Phil's here. I didn't realize that Miss Utah County got on the agenda. It wasn't on there yesterday. Maybe it was. I just missed it. Oh. Oh, perfect, perfect. Indefinitely? Can I just strike it? Yeah, you can put it back on.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Just to be clear, I'm a no on this.
Gonna continue or strike. Depending on who moves first.
With the contract stuff.
All right, Chris, you ready? All right. Good morning and welcome to our Board of County Commissioners meeting this morning. As always, we start with a prayer, reading, or thought, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I already have a volunteer. We've got a scout here. Jeremy Miller is going to give our pledge. Are there any volunteers for the prayer, reading, or thought? Look at the audience for that. Seeing none, I'll bring it up here to the bench. Any volunteers up on the bench?
Happy to do that. Our beloved Heavenly Father, we humbly come before Thee at the beginning of this commission meeting and express our gratitude for the blessings that have been bestowed upon us to live in this free land, and especially in this beautiful community here in Utah County, for the safety and protection afforded to us in liberty and by Thy divine providence and hand. As we begin this meeting, we ask Thy blessings to rest upon us, that the spirit of understanding and cooperation might abide, that we might work through the items that affect the lives of the citizens of this county, and we might do so in a way that is mindful of them and in a way that ensures that they are protected and served with honesty and integrity. We again express our gratitude for the opportunities afforded to us and offer this prayer humbly in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Sure.
Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Jerem, for being a part of that with us. We will now turn to our agenda. On our consent agenda, we have five items that have been published. On the regular agenda, we have a number of items. We'll move all of our items to a consent temporarily as we work down through for either a ratification, approval, or adoption, as stated in the published agenda. And we'll now pull them off, any of them off for consideration, for further discussion. I didn't have any on the published consent agenda that I need to pull off. Was there any from other commissioners? Okay. Regular agenda, of course, we will hold number 1 for recognition.
Oh, you know what?
Number 2
Two.
I don't think it addressed
Strike.
just strike.
Oh, it's 2 strike. Okay, I thought we were going back to consent. Yes, 2 is to strike, if that's fine. Number 4, I didn't have any documents on that. Did you have documents? I didn't see any documents on number 4. I wonder if we should continue that for 1 week.
Okay.
Okay, continue that for 1 week until we get some documents on it. Or 2 weeks, yes, thank you. That's our next meeting. Number 7, Commissioner.
7,
Wanted
yes,
to-
if we could continue that to our next meeting.
Continue for 2 weeks. Number 7. And number 12.
Continue
If we could continue that one for 2 weeks, if we're okay to continue that one for 2.
Sure.
Okay. think that's it. Any others?
I'm just looking at the number 4,
Regular?
and I'm trying to look at. It looks like they are starting this week, and I'm trying to figure out what documents need to be provided. But it does look like there may be some timing issues with this.
We can always make it retroactive.
Okay, fine with that.
I'm actually not sure. Is
Oh,
is
sorry.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure what you need either.
we usually have a document or at least a discussion about that. Has it been selected yet? Oh, okay. I didn't know that had taken place. Maybe it might be wise for us to table that one. Can we table that for maybe is that fair?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, so number 14, instead of continuing it for 2 weeks, maybe we could just table it. Okay. Any others? All right.
I guess my other thing was on 12. Do we prefer to continue that for 2 weeks or just to strike it?
Ben, do you think they'll get back to us within that time frame, or?
I do, but either way, we can upload it again. Whatever.
I think we should continue, but
I'm fine with continuing, in part because I think if we make a note of, Ben, if you could please maybe just email them and make a note that we continued this, it kind of puts a timeline there to force them to get back to us so we can take action on it one way or the other, with up or down. And if they don't get back in 2 weeks, then it's obviously not a priority to them, and at that point we can strike it and it's done. That would be my thoughts anyway.
Okay, great.
fair enough. Okay. Any others? Okay. So everything else, except for the ones that we have pulled off, will be agreed to, ratified, approved, or adopted. So now we'll go to our regular agenda, item number 1. It's a recognition of Jerem Miller. And who's doing that presentation? Justin.
So Mr. Jerem here actually made us 60 bases to hold United States flags that will be posted at all of our voting election centers throughout Utah County for voters to see for the years to come. And so Jerem's here to talk about a little bit about his Eagle Scout project, why he chose to do this, and what he hoped to gain out of the experience. So.
All right. Thanks so much for having me come out here in the first place. It's a great opportunity to come talk with you guys. So I started off with the Eagle Project. Actually, Brady Christensen told me that there was this Eagle Project that I could do with the county elections offices, and I just jumped on it right away because I thought it was going to be a great project. So what I started off doing with, we found all the supplies for my project, and then my neighbor actually, Reed Carlson, helped me cut out all the wood and drill them and round them with a router, and then later we got scouts and volunteers to sand the blocks and to stain them in the to help with the 60 flag holders. And I thought this was a great Eagle project because I was able to help out the community with flag holders, and I gained a lot of leadership through this, just being able to lead people and tell people what to do and how to do stuff. So it was a great project. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jerem. Now, as I understand it, Carly or Justin, is there a federal requirement or a state requirement for a flag in every polling location, and what do we do in the past?
So, in the past, we haven't had flags at our polling location. We used to have really big flags, and just past, we haven't put them out there. I believe it's a federal law.
Yeah.
Or federal
rule.
have flags at all polling locations.
Yep. So we thought this would be perfect to be right on the table when a voter goes in to sign in. That's the first thing they're gonna see. So
Well, thank you, Jerem, for helping us out and being compliant.
Great.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Did you want to have the closed on sale after your meeting yesterday?
Yes. Can we?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to. Okay,
So,
so
That's
with
the best
that,
meeting of all time, right there.
boy, that
Right.
was nice. Presentation. Oh, what was it, number 4? Did we skip
You
something?
tabled it.
Oh,
It
we
was tabled.
tabled it, yeah, so we tabled it. And the rest of them were continued. Everything else was
we
agreed.
can set that meeting in and
So we don't need 16, but we need the other 3.
move that we strike regular agenda item number 16.
Second?
We had a motion and a second to strike agenda item number 16. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
I'll move that we approve set date and time approve and set a date, time, and location for the closed meetings listed in regular agenda items number 17, 18, and 19 for today's date at this location.
Second?
I got a motion and a second to approve and set date, times, and locations for items number 17, 18, and 19. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, we do have a work session presentation. I don't see her here.
Normally it takes longer for work sessions.
I know,
Yeah,
yeah.
And
it's-
in
it's,
fairness to her, I think we told her like we start at 9, but it'd probably be 9
Right.
before we actually get there.
Oh, there she is. Okay. She's thinking she's got plenty of time. And this work session is a presentation talking about Utah's Indigent Defense Commission on improving the indigent defense appeal system. You're up, Joanna. We're ready for you. Yes. We had a short meeting, went really quick.
Glad I drove fast.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I had a moment to chat with Commissioner Ainge, Commissioner Ivy. I sent a note to you.
Saw the email, thank you.
Good. So you guys have always been a tremendous partner to us at the Indigent Defense Commission. I should probably state for the record that I'm Joanna Landau, Director of the Indigent Defense Commission. And we, are trying to help respond to the problem that it's not the problem, but the consequences of the Utah Supreme Court's recent decision to require that anyone appointed to represent an indigent individual on appeal be on a court-approved roster. Your county is exempt, Salt Lake County is exempt, because you have public defender offices with stunning appellate divisions, very competent, very well-qualified people. But many counties found themselves, after this rule change, without a contractor on appeal. Appeals aren't like felonies, aren't like misdemeanors. They don't happen quite as predictably. Someone may choose not to appeal, while at the same time everyone may want to appeal. So we are trying to help centralize appeals. If you think about appeals, they all happen in Salt Lake City, and the Attorney General prosecutes every appeal, every felony appeal, every juvenile delinquency appeal, and child welfare appeal. Misdemeanor appeals, if they involve non-constitutional issues, are handled by local government prosecutors and defenders. So we, at the Indigent Defense Commission, talking to your appellate defenders and asked them if they would help us participate in centralizing it. And many counties applied for grant funding from us to help centralize this. So our idea, begging for your help plan, is to have appeals from counties of the 3rd through 6th class, so the smaller counties with lower caseloads, centralize their appellate representation through Utah County's public defender office. Not having your public defenders burden themselves with additional appeals, but having them contract using the other counties' funding and our funding to provide appellate representation in those counties. Most important thing about this is probably that it involves not one penny of your funding. We at the IDC can't pay defenders directly yet. It's not in our statute. We have to use counties and cities as a pass-through to get to defenders. And part of that, we've talked about that a lot, part of that is the state wants counties still in the game, but it also creates this little hurdle when we're trying to really take a step forward in organizing things. So I am here to ask that you apply for a grant, which is not like the grants that you've applied for in the past, in that you don't need to show your spending, you won't need to do the matching, any upfront reimbursement. It will be literally a pass-through grant where we will write you the check to pass through to the Utah County Defenders to contract with counties to provide appellate representation. That's like a semester of law school right there, what I just said. So I'll stop talking. I have a small handout that just sort of highlights things, but Commissioner Ivey, I know you have the application.
Yes.
Are there any questions? Can I give you guys this just to?
And my understanding is that it will also be handled through a separate account, so these expenses can be handled kind of independently.
Right, exactly. And when I talk to your defenders, the thing that they stress is that they would want an additional, to be able to use our funding to additionally help them administer this, because it will create an extra burden.
That's going to be my question.
Good. So on the grant application includes allowing them to use some funding to contract to help them with the additional caseload. This will really help us quantify appeals from other counties, look at your appeals, look at the whole picture on appeals, and get a better idea of, how to improve this aspect of indigent defense representation.
And maybe just for some clarification, why is this really needed? Like, why can't you just go get an appellant lawyer somewhere? It seems like from our conversation the other day, these are sparse. Is that accurate?
They're not sparse, they're unpredictable. It's a good question, though. So what counties without appellate roster, without attorneys have been doing is sending bids out for each appeal. The appellate roster was created, these people were qualified, they're attorneys. They've never contracted with counties, right? They have no idea how to respond to an RFP bid. And when they are responding, they're responding with Salt Lake City private attorney rates. And so counties who have traditionally contracted with local people working with the counties are finding a pretty big disparity in the contract rates. So part of it is the unpredictability of appeals. Part of it is a little bit of lack of communication around the courts and the appellate roster and with counties. And then also our attempt to really centralize this rather than have smaller counties deal with this independently the way they have been without sort of a standardized way to pay appellate attorneys, way to figure out the data on appeals. So we could let counties go ahead and do this on their own, and many of them are not applying for the grant program, and they will be doing that. I don't know how they're going to start. I don't know how it's going to work if they don't participate in the centralized appellate representation, because many of them are contracting currently for far less than. So there's a lot of swirling issues, and we're trying to help these smaller counties is the real, and we're asking you to help us help them.
So I think one of the biggest things it benefits us with is it provides an avenue, because we're just a pass-through, so we're kind of a vessel to bring some stability to a very rough waters, so to speak. In a selling term, we've got, a lot of varying rates, a lot of lack of availability to provide this constitutional right to people, and we can, through this grant, be a vessel to calm those waters, stabilize some of that pricing, and make sure these people are getting the defense they need.
You said it better than I did. Thank you. Yes.
Can I ask you a question just
Please.
on the mechanics of it, because I just don't understand? We have, here in our county, we have, appellant lawyers, and you say they do an exceptional job. When the money comes in, the grant comes in, and I would assume that it comes to Utah County in a fund to be used in conjunction with the other counties. I'll say smaller counties, right? So they have some skin in the game as well. That's what I'm reading here. So
Yep.
with the money that comes from the state and with the other smaller counties' money coupled together, then they go out and they contract with appellant lawyers. Is that correct so far?
The one thing I would say is the account won't be in Utah County. It'll be housed in the Utah County Public Defender's Office. So,
okay,
they will
okay.
have control over the bank
Right,
account, so
right.
not a Utah County account. That's the only.
I felt like it was probably that, but yeah, okay. So it'd be there.
Otherwise, spot on.
And then, and then when a county has a need for an appellate lawyer, who makes a decision on the contracts, and who makes a decision on who they're going to pick?
That will be your appellate attorney. So they will be effectively managing this roster of available attorneys. They've already been court approved, right? So there's about 35 attorneys from whom they can choose. So they will be contracting directly with those. We've created the contracts for them. We've created the MOUs with the other counties, and then we have contracts with the counties to pay into the funding. It's not a perfect situation, but it is sort of the best we can get with the way our statute works and the way our funding works. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So with the appellant lawyers that we have now that are working primarily Utah County,
Yep.
There's a possibility that the other counties will be contracting with them as well to do some of their work.
The ideal would be they will be contracting with the office to contract out the
Right.
appellate representation. So it's a bit of a step removed. I don't believe your attorneys have a significant caseload and have plenty to do, that I think that they would strongly
Would
prefer to
defer
have
that.
additional help.
And that's where I was driving with that.
Yeah.
If our attorneys have, significant loads, and yet there's others out there, I'm just wondering how that mechanism is going to work in the way of who selects the attorneys, and if ours are. If it's interesting that maybe on a selfish basis if there's a decline, then it would seem like, well, why don't you use one of our appellate attorneys, because let's contract with our own to keep them as busy as possible. And I'm just wondering if that's possible, or are we going to say contract out but don't use the appellate attorneys here, because that will increase workload. Then the workload will translate into
Right.
we need more appellate attorneys, which means an increased cost for us to match as well.
Your attorneys keep very good data on the number of appeals they do for Utah County, so they keep a separate pool there. So if part of the question is the intermingling of funds, I think there's going to be or the intermingling of work.
No.
I think it's up to them, because of their independence, to make those decisions. So if, let's say, they, for some reason, have a downturn in their workload, maybe they would step up and do an appeal on that. But appeals can take up to a year. So I'm suspecting they will choose to contract out for this representation, and
It's
that's
a
what's in the
workload
MOU.
question.
Right.
It's a workload question in the sense that if workload increases, and it's increased with outside of our county, somehow we've got to have separation to say, if we weren't doing the outside work, we have enough appellate attorneys here to manage the caseloads that we have here. So, I mean, it would be internal decision from the management there to say, we've got plenty, we don't need any more, let's contract it out. I'm just kind of wondering how that line works on a.
Would that be their call as an office, right, as management? Because the office is simply managing,
Right.
and then they're not actually increasing their caseload. So our Utah County office is simply managing but not increasing caseload, unless they have the availability. 'Cause
Availability. I'm
right,
just looking
if
into
they
the future.
wanted to, so if our county office wanted to, because they had the availability, they could. But if their caseload's high enough, then they would simply find another attorney from the appellant roster that they would then send to one of these other counties. So they would be the managing office, but in no way, shape, or form this increases their workload or their caseload.
Workload a little bit,
A little
right?
bit, and
Because the management.
that's why I came back and corrected that a little and actually said caseload.
Right.
Because there would be the management portion, but their caseload isn't increasing at all with
Right.
this.
And
Unless
initially,
they have the
yeah.
opportunity and want to.
Right. initially we had thought about hiring attorneys in your office to do this, and that seemed a little bit too close
Too
for
close.
keeping the cases separate. So this will really, and this is really a 12-month kind of pilot project to track the data, track the number of appeals, see how much these attorneys are working on appeals, try and establish hourly basis. It may be that this doesn't continue after this year, but it may be also that we get really good data because your attorneys are good at doing appellate representation and tracking the work that they do.
Yeah. All I'm trying to do is make sure and separate. I mean, I understand the
With you,
dynamics
yeah.
of that management-wise. But if Tom comes and says, our caseloads are too high here, we need another appellate attorney, and we're mingling the workload of two,
Yep.
that would be unfair for Utah County as we look at that.
I hear you, and I understand that, and we will make certain to track the caseload and to keep those cases separate.
Right.
And to, if there is any needed increase on the Utah County side, I would think the Indigent Defense Commission would be very amenable to helping Utah County, especially because of your participation and help with this program. So my point in saying that is we're all vested in knowing exactly what the caseload will
Right.
be.
Okay, fair enough.
One thing in speaking with you that I really liked about this particular grant was you actually give us the money. You front the money. It's not like we have to pay something out and then wait for reimbursement. You guys are fronting the money.
Right. It's a bit of a special project that I had to beg to be able to do, so we'll see. Yeah, and the trick with that will be to track the funding and make sure it's all accounted for, and so we're very invested in the data and the financial tracking on this as well.
Paul's dying to say something here.
Please.
He was jumping out of his chair, twitching. I thought we better let him up.
It's Paul Jones, and you can stay right here, Ms. Landau. And we've talked a few times
Yes,
and
nice to meet you.
haven't met before
At the
until
podium.
today. Well, one thing I think our contract with the Public Defender Association can kind of gauge how captive their appeals attorneys are to our cases. I think I'd already might contemplate solely working on Utah County cases, but that's something that we can possibly look at. I did want to make kind of ask maybe a question or kind of clarify, not at all to detract from the effort here at all in any way. But I'm just wondering if the third through sixth class counties are going to contribute funds, and if they're going to apply for IDC grants, why can't they just contract directly with the Public Defender Association? And why does Utah County need a grant to facilitate that? I mean, this whole centralized idea with the Public Defender Association could almost happen without our involvement, I think. Maybe not.
Yes,
But-
but for our statutory language,
Right.
which doesn't allow us. So the only way we could do that would be to pay each individual third through sixth class county. They would be the
Right.
pass through instead of you.
Right.
So if you were to decide this is not what Utah County wants, that would be
Oh.
how we do it.
This is just two different ways of doing it.
And this lets us centralize it and
the IDC
yeah,
side.
and
Okay.
track the finances in one place as opposed to requiring Iron County,
20 different
Kane
counties.
County.
or-
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. Thanks.
I would like
Your funding can only come to a county, right?
right now, yeah. And cities, local governments.
Right, local governments.
Who the state has delegated the responsibility to, as you all know,
Yes.
for
We're
indigent
very
defense
well
services.
aware of that.
Doing my best to help you out on that one.
Yes, you
Any
are.
other questions, thoughts?
I don't have one.
Appreciate you coming down. I know from today and our conversation the other day, to me, I think this is a great opportunity again for us to help. It doesn't cost us anything. And I think it, for me personally, it continues to move indigent defense in a correct direction because it's putting what you guys are doing more in the front and shifting the burden back towards the state a little more rather than just kicking it down onto us. And so for me, this gives us an opportunity to take one more step in what I feel is the right direction for meeting this constitutional mandate. That's-
I will ditto that because I think it does move us. I mean, we've always had this heartburn about this as a state responsibility and we're shouldering the burden of it. But I think that you're working towards, just like Commissioner Ivy said, pushing that shouldering of the burden back in its rightful place. And so Thank you for that work.
Keep trying.
Your office does a great job.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. That's the end of our agenda. Is there any public comment?
Do we need to acknowledge the first appearance of an important child here?
Oh, maybe we should get her on camera.
Genevieve. Let's see, our clerk auditor, Amelia Powers' new daughter.
Yep, fantastic. 3 weeks old. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into closed sessions then. Thank you.